A classic book that I guess people were forced to read or something when they were younger or so. I had one person comment, so how's it hold up today? Hello, hello. My name's Brandon Whaler, and thank you for joining my channel. I am a indie author and former veteran. That's why I have a straw in my mouth because I had like a very bad heat stroke thing happen, so I can't talk right unless I'm biting down on something. Sounds like this other than that, so sorry. Just how I'm able to get by it. Why it works that way, don't know. But moving on. All right, so in my quest to try to read classic literature, is because I'm trying to inspire myself for a story I'm trying to work on with old language in some ways, or just something I'm looking at. Decided to read some more older books and everything to help with that. Plus, reading classics is always good. I got done reading Treasure Island because it came part of this Adventure Classic set, and I finally got done after a long time. Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. Now, let me just read the back for you. A captivating story of survival, resourcefulness, and personal growth. Embark on a riveting journey with Robinson Crusoe, a castaway who fights for survival and braves the harsh realities of an uninhabited island. Unravel the layers of solitude, courage, and self-reliance as he battles the elements and the demons within. Will he conquer the challenges and carve out a new life amidst the isolation? Of course, the two things. So yeah, seeing this book, I think it was written very early in the 1800s or so. But this book is kind of like a stepping stone for kind of like that adventure stuff that kind of happened and everything throughout the time because it it has a lot in it. So basically, the story is Robinson Crusoe. He's from England. He has a heart for the sea. He wants to go out and sail, even though he doesn't know anything about it. He wants to go out and sail. His father and mother are like, "That's a terrible idea. You shouldn't do that." Well, one day he's like, "I'm going to go do it." He does it. He absolutely hates it because it's like a storm that thunders and lightnings and almost tosses and turns. He gets so sick and everything by it, turns home for a while. He stays home for a little bit, but his heart kept going out to the sea. And despite his misgivings with that thunderous storm, he goes back out again. More things happen. He finally, he gets a plantation, gets to Brazil. He becomes enslaved for a little bit, for a couple of years. Then he gets shipwrecked finally on an inhabited island, and he's there for like 28, 29 years. Gosh. He's there for a long time. And it's just like, wow. So it started off, when he was like 19 or something to go out or anything, and ends when he's like, obviously in his 50s, but it's just like, my goodness. There's a lot of info. It goes into, how he starts building like his own little castle on the island, his cave and everything. And he does in the farming, breeding goats, eating turtle eggs and turtles, um, taking stuff all from the wrecking ship and anything else sometimes that would show up or anything. How he really taught himself and everything, learned the weather and stuff of the island, the quote hot season, rain season, stuff like that, because there's so many seasons like really rainy and not so rainy. But it's language. The thing is about these old books, this Treasure Island, and I'll go up to C.S. Lewis and even Tolkien. The grasp of language, of the English language and everything, is just reading old books is just like, it's amazing. And it's amazing to read all that and stuff. And I'm just kind of like, I can't grasp this. Like my writing that I do, I mean, you can read my 3 fantasy books available on Amazon, but what I kind of feel like is that my stuff is more like, not my fantasy books are geared towards kids, but my writing is more easily accessible in a way of like I'm writing for kids in some way. That's easy to me because I have a mind to do a kids series, and one day I'd like to do it, but it feels like that's kind of what's the easiest writing for me. So trying to write more complex and everything and stuff like that, it gets hard and complicated. And then I read stuff like this, look at C.S. Lewis and other stuff like C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy and everything. It's just like, how do you do this? How do you do this? And it's frustrating because it's not like I can't read it. And even though sometimes like, what am I reading? I can go and look it up and get an idea of what I'm going through. But it's like, you don't have to dumb everything down. I saw this thing with the Hardy Boys. I read some old Hardy Boys books years ago, but I saw this picture online on Twitter and everything that a couple weeks ago that they like updated the language and it's like not even the same book. It's not even the same writing or anything that's going on in the story from this page. And it's like, why would you do that? It's so not even dumbed down. It's like not even what the story was. It's like, what is this? The writing is terrible and it's new adaptation and stuff. You don't have to make everything so dumbed down for kids they don't understand. Hardy Boys was perfectly fine for me when I was a kid because for some reason I point to Hardy Boys, either that or Encyclopedia Brown, but Hardy Boys, even though I don't remember hardly much of the stories about the Hardy Boys, for its action. For some reason, the way it described fight scenes and stuff, that's what drove me to, in a way that inspires me to write fight scenes. I don't know why, but for some reason, the Hardy Boys is it. But getting into this, it is a little bit harder to read. Oh, not a little bit hard. It is harder to read than Treasure Island before. Because the thing with Treasure Island, I'm very aware of what Treasure Island is. It's a famous story. I know it. I think I've read it once years ago. And I was like, I'm going to read it again. And I did. This I knew nothing about. And so getting into it is just kind of like, all right, the guy kind of disobeys his parents and he really wants to go to the ocean. They tell him, like, you're going to regret it. And he does. And he goes out on the island and everything, has to deal with some cannibals that keep coming by. He gets a guy, this is spoilers, but it's a 100-year-old book. He saves one cannibal from being eaten and everything. The cannibal becomes like a servant, calls him Friday and everything. But throughout the 30 years that he's there, he kind of like turns to the Lord because he has a Bible and he gets, becomes Christian and stuff like that. I wouldn't necessarily call the book a Christian book per se. It's just Christian themed and everything because it's written from the point of view of the guy. Daniel Defoe is writing from the point of view of Robinson Crusoe because he's writing like he's looking back as an old man telling his story of everything that happened during all that period and all those days. And so he's just giving you his thoughts and everything that happened. And it's just like you see his change and everything, how someone who, didn't really care about God to someone who come to the Lord. But again, I wouldn't necessarily describe it as a Christian book, but Christian minded. But think of it as the time of, again, when was this? In the beginning of this book, interestingly enough, it actually talks about the Daniel Defoe, how he was, again, born in 1600s. That's how long. So this book is even longer than that. So when did he write this book? It says, so this is like a 300-year-old book, isn't it? Huh. So if this is written in the 1700s, this book's over 300 years old. No, almost 400 years old. No, 300 years old. So think of it, you have to think of it back in that time. So it's just some things and views you're going to think like, oh, this is very horrid and everything like that. It's just like, this is the time period it's in. It's a time period book. Now, again, because of the grasp of language and everything like that, it's not like Pearlandra or Out of the Silent Planet where I couldn't really grasp it and stuff as much. More like Hideous Strength, where it's like, this is kind of a slog. Hearing about, his daily life, just survival. It's not less adventure book than survival book. I don't know, it's not really adventurous. No, I describe it more as survivalist. I mean, so survivalist wise, tips and stuff and actually going through it, I was like, okay, kind of interesting. I had a guy, because I bring these books to me with me to work, and if there's slow moments I try to read, that way I'm not on phone, I can read. And I had a guy, older guy, he said, like, I had to read that when I was a kid. And I was like, it was like required for school or something. I'm like, oh, cool. That was before my time. So I didn't have to read this when that was a thing. So I was like, oh, all right. So is it an interesting book? It is. I can see why it's hailed and everything because it's 300 years old and has a lot of story of survival. And it gives a kind of, even though it's fictional, it does give a glimpse of kind of like the time period and everything of that day and everything like that. So it's like a historical type of view in some ways at that time period. But it's just kind of like, did I enjoy it? Honestly, is again hard to get into because it's just you're reading a guy's thoughts and everything. The philosophical questions like, would the Lord want this? How do I do this? I was like, okay, that's interesting and everything. And towards the end, Friday, teasing a bear and then them having to fight wolves and everything is actually probably the most exciting part. For some reason, towards the end, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, there's other things that happen, like trying to deal with, the mutineers and everything like that. But for some reason, that part, towards the end, was the best part to me. Seemingly, he said there was a sequel or something in this, but it's just like, I don't know where it's at, but I don't know. Have you read Robinson Crusoe? What do you think about it? Interesting. I do say people should read it once. to get an idea of like the backhand history of that time and everything like that. But it's not necessarily my favorite or necessarily a book I'm going to quote unquote repeat again. Unless for some reason I'm in the mood is like, let's read a classic book. Boom. I could say I did it. It does get in, again, the Christian ideas, discovering like, okay, he's actually taking quote unquote religion, Christianity seriously, trying to think about it, repenting of his ways, turning to the Lord. So that part's interesting, but again, it's not Christian book, like Christian thing. It's just a guy thinking on stuff through, like, how did my life lead to this? Oh yeah, because I was such a hopeless wretch, but yet I think of his providence and how he's put me on this island, and eventually all this was happening so I can help these other men grow and everything, and it's really helped bring a colony here. And the Lord's ways are awesome. It's just like, okay, I could see that, but it's just like, because you don't know, like, all right. But again, time period and everything, it's like, so fear of danger is 10,000 more terrifying than danger itself. Sure. I do like kind of like the artist depictions of how his clothes look, how do you make everything out of goat skins and stuff like that. That part is interesting. Oh yeah, basket weaving. He does that and stuff. He's like, oh yeah, I'm never going to use these skills. When he was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? I need to make baskets to hold stuff. And he actually managed to do it. That makes me think, like, you know what? I need to learn how to do some stuff because I'd be kind of in a pickle if I didn't have things. That's just me. It doesn't make me think about doing some survivalist stuff though. So it's interesting. Again, I'm probably not going to necessarily reread it unless I'm in the mood for this type of classic. As far as the next book out of this 4-book set, I'm reading another book right now though, but out of this 4-book set, the next one I'm going to read, Gulliver's Travels. That's the next one I'm going to read. I have a little idea about this. I know he's like big person on a little person island. I know there's that portion, but I think there's an opposite thing too, that he goes to an island and he's the smallest person compared to all the big people. I think there's something like that. But I know this one's more of a whimsy book and everything like that. So we're going to find out what Gulliver's Travels is going to be like. All right. Have you read Robinson Crusoe? What do you think about it? Ideas, themes, and stuff. Tell me about your themes of what you think about the Robinson Crusoe book and everything else like that. Tell me your themes and stuff. Get in your school mind and tell me what you think about it, because I know nothing. All righty. Well, see you in the next one. Goodbye.